The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Let's talk about ethics and lobbying. Remember the phrase drain the swamp? I still sort of remember it as a campaign promise, although clearly it's not happening. Now, President Donald Trump has exempted his entire senior staff from his own ethics rules to allow them to work with political and advocacy groups that are supportive of his own administration. Staffers have been given a pass on these rules, including the infamous Kellyanne Conway, who has been greenlit to communicate and meet with political advocacy, trade, or nonprofit organizations that formerly employed her own consulting firm, despite ethics rules that would otherwise prevent her from working with them. Chief White House strategist and propagandist Steve Bannon has been waived from the rules so that he is going to be able to communicate directly with the press and do all sorts of other stuff that Trump claimed he would not allow staffers to do. 3 former lobbyists in the White House and 1 on the vice president's staff have been exempted from the so-called revolving door rules imposed by Trump's, I guess we're calling it like an ethics executive order, which will now allow those staffers to work on administration policies that might benefit former clients of theirs. The White House waived the rule for example, Trump energy policy advisor Michael Catanzaro, who's a former lobbyist for oil and gas. He was given approval to work on energy and environmental policy issues, including the Clean Power Plan. Former oil and gas lobbyist becomes part of Trump's administration, waived out of having to abide by Trump's own ethics rules, and now can work on energy-related issues. Another example, tax policy advisor Shahira Knight, a former executive of Fidelity, approved to deal with tax, retirement, and financial services issues, even though she used to be a lobbyist on those topics. This is bottom of the barrel. I mean, the level of going backwards on the promises. First of all, if you don't really plan on actually having strict ethics rules, maybe don't campaign on it. Trump campaigns on it. He passes these sort of half-hearted executive orders to sort of fulfill the campaign promise, but then issues a waiver to all of his top campaign staff. So what's the point of rules if people are waived out of having to abide by the rules?
Yeah, that's the thing. This was half-hearted to begin with because, of course, most of the corruption occurs in the legislative branch of government. This executive order only applied to the executive branch of government. Yes. You have to go after things like campaign finance reform, overturning Citizens United, maybe even term limits. But I think he's already checked off the box as if he's drained the swamp.
Oh, yeah. No, this is as far as Trump is concerned, hey, he passed the rules and that's it. He's done his whole ethics thing. And even further supporting the smoke and mirrors thing is what you're pointing out, Pat, which is that these lobbyists can still go back in, or these former government officials can still go back and lobby Congress, if not the executive branch. This is beyond the pale. And the problem we're running up against is that there's so much happening so quickly every single day. It's tough to keep up with it for the average person. I mean, just in the last few days, we've got, Jeff Sessions and Kislyak's new undisclosed meeting, Donald Trump giving back Russian compounds in New York and Maryland that once housed presumably spies, Trump and the Paris Climate Agreement, now this slimy, corrupt move regarding the ethics rules. And this is a tactic. In a debate, have you heard of the Gish Gallop, Pat?
Yes.
So in a debate, Gish Gallop is you fill up your 90 seconds or whatever you have with so many disjointed arguments that your opponent is never going to be able to refute all of them in the 90 seconds that they have. And it sort of appears as though, hey, you made all these points that nobody refuted. This is a similar version of that, which is you throw out and do such a barrage of BS that everybody is drowned by it. And people end up either ignoring it or focusing on 1 or 2 things and ignoring really major stories. This is sort of the tactic that the Trump administration is relying on. This is the only way they can get things done.
Yeah, it's really too bad because we thought that government ethics reform might be one of the saving graces of the Trump administration. Of course, we disagree with him on 90% of issues, but
Yes.
maybe this is the one thing that we could find consensus on with him.
Well,
maybe even more so than Hillary Clinton.
We agreed with the campaign promise. Of course, he passed a milquetoast version of it and then waved his own senior staff out of it.
Yeah, I don't think we can pat ourselves on the back too much, but I think we were wise enough to know that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, and obviously it really hasn't. What's next? A preemptive pardon for any crimes Trump may have or will be committing in the future? I don't know who could possibly support what Trump is doing by waving out his senior staff from his own ethics rules. If you supported draining the swamp, if for a second you believed Trump would drain the swamp, how could you possibly see this and say, I support the actions of Donald Trump? I've got a great book recommendation for you today. I recently finished reading the book, The Orphan Master's Son by Adam Johnson. This is a Pulitzer Prize winner for fiction. If you're interested in North Korea, and you know, Pat, I'm interested in North Korea. I watched all the North Korea documentaries. One of the most compelling visually is, of course, when when Dennis Rodman went to North Korea and went on sort of basketball diplomacy, and Vice did a documentary about it. That's a classic, but there's so many great North Korean documentaries.
I mean, perhaps our top diplomat with regards to North Korea is Dennis Rodman,
the American,
which is just fascinating.
The American with the most direct knowledge of Kim Jong-un is former Chicago Bulls star rebounder, Dennis Rodman. Anyway, The Orphan Master's Son is a novel based in North Korea during the time of Kim Jong-il, not Kim Jong-un. And it's the story of Pak Jun-do, who is the son of a lost mother and a sort of influential father of sorts. And the story is a story about Pak Jun-do and his sort of rise up to and including being in the universe of Kim Jong-il. I don't want to say too much to risk spoiling the story. The writing is extraordinary. The story is extraordinary. But also, if you're interested in North Korea, Adam Johnson, the research that went into this by author Adam Johnson in order to paint the picture of what it's like day to day in Pyongyang and in other parts of North Korea, really, really good. So it's not a documentary about North Korea, but if you're interested in the country and interested in that world, I could not recommend this more highly. Is this a recommendation you would be willing to accept from me, Pat?
I accept the recommendation.
Okay, you're not going to read the book, but the recommendation you accept.
Well, how long is the book?
It's 300-400 pages, normal novel.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, listen, I can't recommend this highly enough. Really, one of my favorite recent works of this type of fiction. You can read about all of my recommendations, books, fiction and nonfiction, documentaries, movies, everything, at davidpakman.com/recommendations. And by the way, I think everybody should read the book no matter where you buy it. But if you use the links at davidpakman.com/recommendations to purchase any of the books or films I recommend, we do get a little kickback from Amazon. So consider that. We've got a great program for you today. We're taking calls. We've got a classic interview. We're going to do audience questions. I'm on Twitter, available for all questions and comments at dpakman. Join me there.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Today's new member of the day is Carl Pilcher. Carl, thank you so much for being a David Pakman Show member. Our program is mostly funded by members like Carl. You can sign up at davidpakman.com/membership. The coupon code I voted 17 is available if you would like to use it for a 40% discount. If not, by all means, you can pay full price and support us at a higher level. You can also make a pledge of as little as $1 a month or as much as you want per month at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. Let's jump into some phone calls at 617-830-4750. Let's start with our caller from the 360 area code. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, David.
You know, it sounds like you've got bad reception. Didn't get your name, didn't get where you were calling from. Any way we could try once more. Let's see if we can get a working signal from you.
Sorry about that. My name's Jeremy Glasgow. I'm from Akron, Washington.
All right, we could barely hear you. Let's give one shot at hearing what your question is, but if we can't get better service, we're going to have to move on. I think you said Jeremy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what's on your mind, Jeremy?
So I guess I was just thinking about the Kathy Griffin photo.
Yeah.
That she released with the beheaded Donald Trump. And Trump released a tweet yesterday saying that, it affected all of his children, including his 11-year-old son, Barron. And I was thinking, I don't know if you remember back a couple months ago, but Rosie O'Donnell was making jokes about Barron being autistic and everything. And he didn't say one word. And so I just thought that it was interesting, I guess, that he only cared about, he only made a public statement about Barron and how things were affecting him when it was like a direct attack on him.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? When somebody actually goes after Barron and Trump's silent about how Barron is impacted by that, now all of a sudden someone does something that Trump doesn't like about him, and the concern all of a sudden is his 11-year-old son, Barron. I didn't think about that. I mean, honestly, Jeremy, I didn't talk about the story because I was thinking Kathy Griffin held up a doll, effectively the head of a doll, and Trump is leaving the Paris Climate Accord. It just seemed so inconsequential in context, but you're making a good point. I appreciate you doing it. Yeah, no, I don't think anyone's really thought about it, so I just wanted to get your guys' opinion on it. Yeah, no, that's interesting. And I think, it goes to Trump's self-centeredness, right? I mean, when it's convenient, he's sort of putting his son out there as this is why it's all so bad. But when it's actually about his son, Trump's silent on it. Yeah, it's like it's affecting him so negatively because now he has to go out there and console his son because he's so upset. Right, as if anyone believes that that's what Trump is spending his time doing. All right, thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate the call. Yeah, no problem. Thank you, guys. All right, take care. We are taking calls at 617-830-4750. Why don't we go to our next caller from the 517 area code? Caller from 517, what's your name and where you're calling from?
Hello, my name is Sherry, and I'm calling from Michigan.
Great. What's on your mind today?
Well, I received a gift recently from a family member, and there were a few things on it that threw up some red flags for me. I just wanted to get your opinion on it.
Okay.
The brand name is iFrogs, all lowercase, IFROGZ. The product is called Toxix, TOXIX, ear pollution, and these are earbuds. The company this product was copyrighted in 2016 in Midvale, Utah, which is Chaffetz territory.
Okay.
And the international office is in Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
It has a warning on the product that says this product contains chemicals known to the state of California, known to cause cancer, birth defects, and or reproductive harm.
Right.
And it's just so blatant that they're calling it toxic ear pollution.
What? Okay, so let's see if we can break this down into a couple different things. That note, by the way, is something that appears about this has been in California as possible carcinogen. I ordered some pencils on Amazon,
yes,
and they came with that note.
Yes.
And I was like, wait, hold on a second. Pencils now cause cancer? And I researched it, and basically what it is that if you end up, pencils could be turned into sawdust, and if you inhale sawdust, it's possible that it's carcinogenic. So that warning is being used really, really broadly for a lot of products that are or could be sold in California. And what I determined was, like, at least with regards to the pencils that I ordered, unless I'm snorting the shavings, it's not going to be something I particularly need to worry about. But I'm not sure I understand your specific question.
I don't know about that, but as someone in healthcare, my concern would be more about people chewing the pencil and the contents of the paint that's on the pencil.
But so I guess I'm not totally sure with regard to this iFrogs thing. What is your specific question?
Well, first of all, how do you feel about, I mean, the blatancy of the fact that they are specifically calling this toxic ear pollution? They're labeling it with this reproductive harm thing, which I know anything that's sold in California requires that label. And people can disregard that, but that is because they have a higher standard as far as the things that they'll expose their population to.
Right. Well, listen,
And
I know
so
nothing about the
we are
product,
benefiting
unfortunately.
from
I
their
unfortunately know
legislation.
nothing about the product, and I really would not be able to comment. And I just have never heard of this product. I don't know why someone would call their product toxic. It sounds odd to me, and I really wouldn't be able to comment on it, unfortunately, one way or the other. And on that note, I think I'm going to have to move on, Pat, because I can't. It's just not a product I've heard of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not really our expertise, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We're taking calls at 617-830-4750. We're going to go to our next caller from the 367 area code. Caller in 367, what's your name and where are you calling from today?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello, David. My name is Norbert. I am Nigerian, but I live in Hungary, so that's why I'm calling with the 3670. I'm a huge fan of you. I followed your show since like 2 years ago, and it's very nice to talk in person. You're my favorite YouTube progressive talk show host right now. I watch all your videos. I have to commend you on your Russia. You are following up so much on the Russia story, man, and I commend you so much because a lot of progressive talk show hosts, I unsubscribed from Kaz Golinsky, Jimmy Dore, and even TYT, but even TYT, maybe I will do so soon. But you, man, once I have enough money, I'm going to join your Patreon because you are really doing some hard-hitting journalism, and I have to commend you, bro. You really have. I'm really a huge fan of yours.
All right, well, Norbert, I really appreciate it. Norbert is not a planted call, by the way. It's the rare, very positive call, but it is not. Norbert, you and I have never spoken before. I've not told you to make this phone call, right?
Of course not. This is not any. This is not the globalist. This is not Alex Jones. This is nothing, bro. This is just a genuine. And bro, just one more thing.
Yep.
I really love I thank you for debunking that Seth Rich story you did yesterday. I know you got a lot of feedback from it. If you look at the thumbs down, there's a lot of thumbs down right now. But bro, I really support you for doing that. And it took a lot of courage because other YouTube hosts, they won't do that because they know the Seth Rich story panders to the left wing, the Bernie Sanders wing. But one thing I really like about you, you don't pander to the left wing, Bernie Sanders, or the right wing, or the Hillary wing. You call it straight. And I want to say you should stand your ground on the Seth Rich story and call it out. No matter the dislikes or anything, I stand with you, bro. So I just wanted to call and give you my support and thank you for all the good work you're doing.
Norbert, I can't thank you enough. And yeah, you know what people don't get about the downvotes is downvotes don't really hurt us. You know, like there's this inflow sometimes when we touch a nerve and all these downvotes. It's like you're still watching the video and you're still voting, which creates engagement in the YouTube algorithm. It's funny how people think they're going to hurt us by downvoting, you know, Norbert? Yeah. All right. Well, listen, best caller ever, clearly.
I think if you ever get married, David, you should have Norbert speak at your wedding.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I hope you do personal appearances, Norbert.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
Can I say one more thing? You know, I always watch you, you know, because I live in Europe, I have a GMT +2. I won't get you guys uploads for today till in the evening.
Right.
So it's very, very nice to hear you guys voices in person. I'm a huge, huge fan and keep up the great work. And to your other co-host, sorry, I forgot his name.
Pat.
So it was, I forgot.
Pat.
Yeah, you guys are a good bunch and keep up the good work, David.
Right.
Very good. You're my best YouTube progressive host right now.
Thank you. Point taken. Point taken. Norbert, a real pleasure. Wow, Pat. Wow. Very, very good call. Let's put him on the white list. I'm just kidding. There's no white list and black list.
That's going to keep us in a good mood for the whole day.
That's a great call. That's truly a great call. Let's continue. We don't know what sort of can of worms we're opening here, but we are taking calls at 617-830-4750. Let's take our next caller from the 949 area code. That's an area code we've done well with in the past. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello, David. My name is Isaiah Rowe from Orange County, California.
Great. What's on your mind today?
Right now I'm in college. I'm a junior, and I was wondering, back when you were in college or in high school, what type of jobs were you thinking about having in the future? Like, I would imagine before what you are now, you had some other ideas or some other jobs that you thought you might want to have that would maybe be more, realistic at the time.
Yeah, or maybe jobs where like you're not called a dirty Jew 20 times a day, like normal jobs, I guess you would say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Normal jobs.
Well, I think when I was a high school senior, I wanted to be a firefighter, but then by the time I got to college, I wanted to be a policeman.
Oh yeah.
No, I'm kidding around. That was more when I was like 5 and 6, something like that. I really didn't know. I mean, I think that was part of Isaiah why, like, I went straight into graduate school from undergrad because I just wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And while I was an undergraduate student at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, I started sort of like the first iteration of the David Pakman Show. And I liked it. At the time, it wasn't a business. It wasn't a job. It was sort of a hobby that I was doing and barely doing at that, I might add. And that's, I went directly into grad school and just sort of figured out, my colleagues in grad school, they're becoming financial advisors, they're going to work at banks and stuff like that. Didn't really appeal to me. And that's why it just sort of naturally became this idea of, hey, maybe I can turn the show into a job of some kind. But I don't know. I mean, I think I definitely was thinking along the lines of some kind of, what I knew I didn't want was something really rigid where it's like, well, we expect you to just be sitting at your desk from 8:45 in the morning until 5:10, and you're allowed a 12-minute break sometime between noon and 1:30 and sort of that type of thing, and doing one type of task. So I knew I didn't want that, and I never really did too well having sort of like a direct supervisor or boss. And so I think it was more circumstance that led to me taking the path I did.
Cool. I was wondering, did you ever want to be like maybe like a high school teacher or anything like that?
Never.
Oh.
Not that there's anything. I mean, high school teachers are
it.
great. I've had great high school teachers, but it did not occur to me to be a high school teacher. All right, Isaiah, always great to hear from you. I recognize you from the world of YouTube super chats. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have given a fairly decent amount in super chats.
Yeah, Isaiah is a super chat all-star, I would say, Hall of Famer. All right, Isaiah, hope to hear from you again. Thanks so much for the call.
Thank you.
All right, take care. We are taking calls at 617-830-4750. Let's dive into the 469 area code. Our next caller is from the 469 area code. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, David. I'm George. I'm calling from Dallas, Texas.
Cool. What's on your mind today?
Oh, I just wanted to say thank you, and thank you to Patrick Ford for making the show. I've been listening since February. I've just been really appreciative of your just stance on things and coverage of really well and down-to-earth topics. You provide really good insight, and you don't really seem to fake it, and you've been doing really well. I just wanted to call and say thanks. Also, I have another question regarding Donald Trump and impeachment.
Sure,
what do
go
you
ahead.
think of him if Comey decides to? I think the FBI has cleared Comey to let him testify. Do you think Trump will let him? You think Trump will let him testify?
Well, I think, will Trump let him? I think that there's no doubt Donald Trump doesn't want Comey to testify. I think it will be hard if Trump has to watch Comey testifying on TV. It's going to be hard for him not to be basically, going completely apoplectic on Twitter throughout the entire time. But there's a sense that I think, Pat, if Trump could exert sort of behind the scenes diplomatic or bureaucratic type pressure against Comey testifying, he would do it. I just don't know that at this point there's really much that can be done.
Yeah, I mean, this is in Congress's hands now. He's going to testify before the Senate Intelligence Committee. I don't think that's within his realm of power to stop them from having Comey testify.
Yeah, and again, we sort of have a sense intuitively that the White House might have delayed maybe Sally Yates' eventual testimony, but ultimately it didn't happen. In other words, ultimately the testimony happened. The delays did not succeed. I expect Comey will testify. I hope that even though as former FBI director, he does have pretty good security around them, if you know what I mean.
Do you think all of Trump's team will plead the fifth?
I have no idea. I mean, I really don't know. Let's cross that bridge when we come to it. Let's wait for what James Comey has to say. Now, I think James Comey's testimony, congressional testimony, is not exactly the most exciting TV. Comey's testimony is going to be like the most well-watched testimony of its kind, right?
Yeah.
I think it's going to rank up there with Oliver North's testimony in the 1980s regarding the Iran-Contra scandal.
Yeah, I think you're right. All right, thanks so much for the call.
Thank you, David.
All right, take care. That is it for phone calls today. When we take calls, it is at 617-830-4750. We will take a break and continue with the Friday show after this.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
For today's classic interview, we're going back to something that we're seeing less of now since the Supreme Court's decision on same-sex marriage bans at the state level. This is my interview with James White, a sort of a quirky anti-gay pastor who also told some interesting stories about his wife. I don't think it needs much more of an introduction. Let's jump right into it. I'm joined today by James White. He is a current UCC pastor, and he is located in the Goldtree, Oklahoma church. So let's start first, James. What is the UCC? What denomination is that?
It's the United Church of Christ. It is a combination. The merger took place in the early 60s between the Evangelical and Reformed Church and Congregational Christian Church. They're very liberal, and are partners, so to speak, with the Disciples of Christ. If you're ordained in one, you can be a minister in the other, and vice versa. It seems here lately a lot of the church growth has come because of MCC churches that left the Metropolitan Community Church and joined the UCC. But
okay, so tells us what it is, but I want to get right into kind of your situation. So you're going to be stepping down as pastor of the Goldtree, Oklahoma UCC Church, and the issue you have a problem with is same-sex marriage. So outline what is the church's position and what is your position that is so different that it's causing you to resign?
Well, actually, at the local level, they agree with me, but the problem is that they don't want to leave the denomination. They're great people.
So let me reframe it because I want to walk people through it. Churches in the UCC recognize and can solemnize same-sex marriage, and that's what you disagree with, right? I just want to be totally explicit so our audience knows what we're talking about.
Absolutely. I first became a part of the UCC back in 2008. And was driving down to Oklahoma City. I was actually a part of a church that's mostly gay and lesbian for a while. And then once I graduated seminary, I had to find a preaching position. But the more personal study I did on my own, the more I realized that what I had been taught in seminary and what I had learned through the denomination wasn't accurate.
So explain that. So what is your view of same-sex marriage?
I define marriage as between a man and a woman. That comes from the Bible. What I've discovered over dealing with people in the denomination is that The more that they value experience over Scripture, the more liberal they are. And the more that they value the Bible over experience, then the more conservative they tend to be.
Now, as someone who has studied this and is a student of knowledge, so to speak, wouldn't it tell you that if people base their lives and their points of views more on their experience and their thinking than on what a book purportedly written by God tells them, maybe that's more what we should be listening to? Maybe experience and logic tell us more about how we should treat gay and lesbian couples than a book clearly written by humans but supposedly written by God tells us. Maybe we could learn from that.
Well, let me make one thing clear, and this is probably where some conservatives would disagree with me on, is that I don't think of this as being in salvation. I think there are people who are gay and lesbian who are genuinely saved.
That's nice.
Who I will see on the other side.
Okay.
And the thing about like my experience with Cathedral of Hope is that these people are genuinely wanting to do the right thing. They do reach out to people at the Gay Pride event, and there are thousands of people there. And it was really disheartening. You know, it's like the Sunday night service after that weekend would take place, and you might have 3 or 4 new people show up when you literally handed out thousands of flyers and buttons, and you had people participate in this parade either on Friday or Saturday, and then very few people showed up. So
yeah, that could be tough, but
I'm not questioning the salvation of the people of Cathedral of Hope at all.
Yeah, and I'm not either, but salvation aside just for a second, it sounds like your opposition to gay marriage, lesbian marriage, is primarily Bible-based. In other words, you didn't mention one anti-gay argument, which is it's not natural. You didn't mention the it doesn't lead to reproduction. You didn't mention, well, it's a legal redefinition, and I don't like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but your opposition is mostly Bible-based. Is that right?
Well, I would say that, and here's the thing that really kind of threw a red flag up for me, is that a lot of the people I spoke with that are gay and lesbian, whenever I would mention things like bigamy, polygamy, and other things, they never really wanted to draw the line there. They never really wanted to say, well, that stuff is bad. What I'm hearing now is the idea of marriage equality for everybody. We'll have to have some kind of limits, because if you don't, then what are you defining marriage as?
Well, that's interesting because, and again, you and I are talking, we're not having a legal discussion. Obviously, religious texts have no bearing at all on legal structure in this country. Whether you agree with that or not with me, we're leaving that out for this conversation. But let's address it from the point of view of the Bible. The Bible talks about men with multiple wives, men with multiple wives and concubines, et cetera, et cetera. So is it not arbitrary to say that because of the Bible, you are against gay marriage, for example, although the Bible talks about multiple wives, concubines, et cetera. It talks about stoning your wife if she's not a virgin on the wedding day, et cetera.
Right.
Isn't it all just kind of cherry picking?
Well, the thing about that is, and I'm glad you brought it up, is that you really can't find one example of a healthy relationship where somebody did have multiple wives. I think the Bible mentions in 1 Corinthians that we have the Old Testament as an example for us. And really, if you think about it, could you really have 2, 3, 4 wives and love each one of them equally and the same? And I don't think you can.
So let's use that. I like that. I like that you're applying that question, which is, let's just think about this logically and say, can you really be married to 4 people and love them equally and have that type of relationship? And you're thinking the answer is no. What is it about a relationship between one man and one woman? I'm sorry, between 2 men or between 2 women where you couldn't have the same type of love that you have in a male-female relationship? Applying just the kind of casual logic test that you applied just a second ago.
Well, to add something further to the design of marriage, I think the thing that makes marriage so great is that you're married to somebody who thinks differently than you do. During the last 13 plus years, my wife has challenged me, stretched me, really.
Your wife has stretched you?
I would say, just when I first got married, I was very selfish and very self-centered, and I did not even realize how much so. During the time we've been married, I've learned how to care for others in a way that, you know.
But James, what you're saying, James, if I may, you're going down an incredibly misogynistic path, which is suggesting that only women can teach men how to care for others. You're also using very anecdotal evidence, which as a student as someone who is an educated person, I'm sure you know that anecdotal evidence is not really what we should talk about to discuss broad policy or ideas. It seems incredibly offensive to so many men to say that women are what is needed to learn to care about others.
Well, I think it goes two ways. I think there are things that she's learned about life from me as well. I'm contrasting that to two men or two women because, at least in my opinion, it's a mirror image. You're with somebody who does think like you do and isn't really going to challenge you on certain things.
I just think that this is a very silly argument, though, James, because the idea that you think the same as anyone else who is the same gender as you, and therefore you wouldn't learn from marriage. I've honestly, I'm interested in this idea because I've never heard it before, but it's not a very strong argument, is it?
Well, we'll have to agree to disagree on that one.
Yeah.
I know, me personally, my life is very fulfilling.
Good.
And
now, if you were attracted to men, if you were born just being attracted to men, would you not be fulfilled if you were able to marry the man that you loved? Hypothetically, right? Would you not find fulfillment in that?
That's an interesting question. I probably... Honestly, I don't know. I'm too.
It's so hard for you to imagine not being straight because you were born straight, correct?
Yeah, I'm not going to completely dismiss the science that I think you're referring to, but I think there needs to be more done as far as whether or not you can be born gay. I think there needs to be more scientific research.
So my question to you is, I guess, did you ever decide, James, when you were, I don't know, 7, to say, okay, well, right now I'm completely neutral between being attracted to men or women. I think I'm going to choose to be attracted to women. You never had that revelation, did you?
Well, most of my time up until the age of 10, I was either playing basketball, football, or kickball. So
that's fair, perfectly fair. So at 10 is that when you made the decision? You could have gone either way. You could have been into guys, you could have been into girls, and you said, well, I'm 10, I've played enough kickball, now I'm going to choose to be into women. Is that how it went for you? Or did you at some point just realize you're attracted to women?
That's an interesting question. Who's the actual first girl I was attracted to? Probably 6th grade. I knew a girl named Shannon who had failed her grade, and so she was a little bit more, shall I say, physically mature than some of the girls. And
so you were attracted. You were attracted to your classmates' breasts, and that was a physical reaction you had. You never said, I'm going to decide today to like my classmates' breasts. That just happened. Okay, I think I see that you're kind of putting up some obstacles, but I think the audience kind of gets where I'm going with this. We are out of time, James. I wish you the best of luck. I'm sorry that your opposition to marriage equality is leaving you to leave your position. I hope you find a new position, and I do thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Let's get to some audience questions. I think this week's are particularly good. First one is from Penny. Are people generally aware of their surroundings, or are they too distracted? Sort of depends what you mean. There are so many situations where the norm blends into the background so that when something unusual actually happens, people are very, very slow to react. And you see this so often in situations where there's sort of a crime being committed. If you go to the same place every day and you drive to work the same way, sometimes when there's something out of place, it almost takes longer for someone to realize that something is out of place because you sort of have this idea in your brain that this is going to be the same every single day. And this sort of relates to the concept of situational awareness. Now, when it comes to something like driving around, I think that people are generally not aware of their surroundings and are too distracted. Just over the weekend, when I was driving back from Montreal, from miles away on Highway 89, it's very straight in some parts, so very curvy in other parts as you're going through the Vermont mountains, but in some parts it's straight. And from miles away, I saw a car in the fast lane and just people going into the slow lane to pass the car. And you could just tell from miles away, this is someone on their mobile phone. They have no idea that they're going under the speed limit in the fast lane. They have no idea that they're being passed in the slow lane by numerous cars. And case in point, as I got close from, whatever it was, a mile away to half a mile to a quarter mile, drive by and there's someone sitting there with one hand on the steering wheel and looking at their phone like this. No idea the chaos that they're creating and the unsafe situation that they're creating on the highway. So I think that for different reasons and in different situations, people are generally not aware enough of what's going on around them and too distracted by all sorts of different things.
And they can be incredibly dangerous too. I mean, the example that always comes to my mind is people using their phones while they're driving. And of course, in most states now, you can't text while drive, or that's a trend that's going in the right direction. But you can still use your phone to make calls. And of course, you have to toggle with it for a little bit.
Although
navigation as well.
Interestingly, in Vermont, there are signs all over the highway saying handheld device use prohibited for drivers. So that means even if you're picking up your phone to dial a phone number and or even holding the phone up to your face.
You're using it for music or just to get
all
around
of that
for your
would
maps.
not be allowed, which made it all the more frustrating when this guy was causing havoc on I-89 by doing exactly that. On public transit, I think there's a sort of deliberate not paying attention that goes on for many people in order to not get pulled into, there can be characters on public transit in New York and in Boston. You see many people sort of enter their own world. I don't think that's a new thing because of mobile phones. You see pictures from the 60s, people on trains. Everybody's got their head in a newspaper. But I think it is a sort of deliberate disconnecting from your surroundings. So you don't want to get pulled into whatever performer is going to be doing a dance on the subway and then asking for change, or people that might be suffering from some kind of mental illness and maybe we'll talk to whoever makes eye contact, and that might make someone feel unsafe. But people go into a cocoon on public transit.
And another example that doesn't have to do with technology so much is people walking in groups. And maybe they're at a very slow pace. So there could be three or four people next to each other on a sidewalk. And you have to make this dangerous or rude move to try to get around them. I cannot stand that.
People can't stand distracted walkers. And I know people say, oh, New Yorkers are rude, Bostonians are rude. In New York City, there would sometimes be usually it was tourists because they're not exactly sure where to go. And they would get off the subway and stand 4 across right at the bottom of the set of stairs. The set of stairs that hundreds of people per minute need to go up in order to make it to work on time, and block the entire set of stairs as they look around. We going uptown or downtown? I'm not really sure. And it's not a question of being impolite. It's every minute you do that, there are hundreds of people that you are delaying on their way to work.
Yeah, and everyone can tell, maybe someone has a tough time walking, they're disabled in some way.
We're not
Everyone is
that.
going to be polite to them and give them all the time that they need. But it's oftentimes just people just being oblivious entirely. And
well, not everyone would be polite to them. Our president thinks it's funny to mock people who have physical disabilities, but most normal people would do it,
See, another thing that came to my mind is, do you listen to music with headphones while walking around in the city?
I don't.
Because a lot of people don't, because they're in fear that maybe some attacker will come up behind them or something, and they're just not going to be aware of their surroundings.
No, I don't do that. I don't. I typically don't. I typically either carry a book with me or read articles on my phone. But
see, that is a risk I'm willing to take. I'm willing to walk around with headphones. And also, the other thing that came to my mind was one time I was texting while walking, which isn't as dangerous as texting while driving, but I guess
you end up in
still
front
be
of a
kind
car.
Dangerous. And I nearly walked right into a street sign.
That's not.
And someone laughed at me.
I've seen people walk into doors because they're texting while walking. Anyway, the answer, Penny, is no. People are not paying enough attention. Addison wrote in saying, "Do you guys make your own coffee at home or prefer to buy it?" This may be someone who's never watched or listened to the program before, because there's a lot wrapped up in this question. But I typically make my coffee at home. We have 2 David Pakman Show coffee blends available at davidpakman.com/gear. One for espresso machines, one for traditional. Actually, it's wrong to even say that. I know people say, David, in most of the world, traditional coffee machines are espresso machines. Drip coffee machines is what I mean. And typically I'll make my own coffee, but I often have meetings at coffee shops or whatever. I do not go to chain coffee shops, with some very specific exceptions, but absolutely no Starbucks, no Dunkin' Donuts, no Panera, no Pete's, no, even Barrington Coffee Roasters, which is one here in Boston, I will not go to. I try to go to local coffee shops. But, over time, I feel like the coffee I make at home is better than what I get out, except at really good coffee shops.
See, under advice of counsel, I'm going to invoke my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination and decline to answer this topic.
All right, that's fair. And I think if you Google Pat Keurig, you'll figure out a lot of what is behind Pat's recusal.
I'm moving in the right direction, though. I'm actually considering getting a drip coffee appliance that's just meant to brew 1 or 2 cups at a time.
Oh, yeah, you can do that. I mean, if you get a mini Chemex, or even a small French press, that's basically 1.5 cups to 2 cups.
All right. And I'm honestly not against going to Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks whenever, if you're out and about. You just can't really do it every day, because if you're spending $3 on coffee every day, it doesn't sound like much, but that adds up to $1,000 over the course of a year.
Yes, and there's a lot of different personal finance articles that tackle that exact issue, much to the dismay of, a lot of other people who sort of disagree with the entire latte millionaire. Anyway, I'm sort of going in another direction here. But in any case, Addison, I do make my own coffee at home. But if I go to a non-chain coffee shop, I will get it. My drink of choice is basically cappuccino. That's typically what I have. Or espresso macchiato. That's the way I go. I drink very little drip coffee at this point. Now, Vegan Pat, of course, is relegated to the depths of weak drip coffee, because you can't really make cappuccino without milk.
No, although black coffee is the best type of coffee. And also, I have to ask, would you ever be willing to have convenience store coffee, like at a 7-Eleven or a Tedeschi's, or is that just below you?
No, it's not that it's below me. Thanks for setting me up for that. But
I know you have elitist coffee habits.
It's not that it's below me. Okay. It's that the only reason I would ever be restricted to only a 7-Eleven for coffee is because it's a time of day where there are no coffee shops open. And I don't drink coffee at those times of day.
I think my lawyers are going to be very upset with me for speaking so openly about this topic.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's going to be good. Okay, that's it, Addison. Lastly, this is going to be, I think, a very, very short one. Julian wants to know, would either of you ever go hunting? My answer is very simple. If I needed to go hunting in order to feed myself, I would go hunting. Otherwise, the answer is no. I have no interest in killing animals, either for optional meat consumption or for sport.
Right. I mean, if you're off in the wilderness somewhere, you choose to live off the grid, or maybe you're born to a tribe that hunts to survive.
Right.
Totally fair game. That's out of necessity. You have the right to live, and even if that means to kill other beings to do so, you can do that. But the fact that we live in a civilized society where most of us are so close to the grocery store makes hunting completely unnecessary at this point.
Yeah, I would not do it. Brian, where are you at on this? Are you agreeing with us or disagreeing?
I'm disagreeing.
All right. Well, listen. This would be. You would hunt for sport?
No, but I don't think you can make the moral argument. Like if you're close to a grocery store.
Well, I don't know that you need to, but I think it's a fine argument to make if it resonates with you. Brian's kind of off mic.
I don't know if but is Brian
Brian's off mic. Okay. Anyway, but I think we're both. Would any of us go hunting?
No.
Given where we live in society, would that be? Oh, no, Brian's saying maybe.
I think hunting is the sport where the other team doesn't even know that you're playing.
Yes, that's true. That's true, especially when it's hibernating bears, as was recently legalized in Alaska, which I've been told doesn't mean literally bears that are in the sleeping process, but during hibernation season.
It just seems so rude to me. It's like these deer and other animals are just doing their own thing, and you just have to needlessly kill them for your own entertainment. It's like, why would someone do that?
As far as I go is I went to a shooting range and shot a few guns, and it didn't really do much for me. And that's about it.
But shooting's totally fine.
Yeah. Now, what about like bow and arrow hunting? Do you think that is more fair to the animals?
Okay, so sometimes hunters will be killed themselves. And I think, I can't really express too much sympathy for them.
The animals fight back.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you're going to put yourself in that position, sometimes that can happen.
It's hard to disagree with that.
Yeah.
It's hard to disagree with that. All right. So listen, unless I needed the food to survive, no, I would not go hunting.
You're not just going to do it like Donald Trump's sons?
No, I will not do that. Especially not elephants. But who wants to kill an elephant these days, given what we know about elephants and the ivory trade and all that stuff? You wouldn't kill an elephant, right, Brian? No. Okay, good. And you wouldn't kill a whale. No, good.
What about a killer whale?
Well, that's a euphemism. Okay. I saw, by the way, in Vermont over the week, I went to IMAX and saw a great documentary about humpback whales.
Ooh.
And we're completely off topic. No hunting for me. Great bonus show for you today.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.